First thing we need to do is approve the minutes from our December 10th meeting. I included those with the email with the agenda for this meeting, so hopefully everybody got a chance to take a look at those. Does anybody have any changes, updates, edits to the minutes from the last meeting?
Where is your oatmeal?
It's in the fridge, hon. Oh, hi.
No worries.
My little
like
girl is homesick. Hi. My little girl's homesick, so I'm still getting ready, which is why I don't have the video on. How are you?
Fine. So it sounds like there are no changes for the minutes. So if I could get a motion to approve those, and just when you make a motion or a second, if you could also say your name and your library, that'll be really helpful for the minutes.
I move to approve, and it's Liz McLean from Glencoe.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Nancy Weber from Crystal Lake.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, so we'll move on to CCS updates.
Perfect. I am first on the list to talk about the Vega Development Partner Program. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So Kathleen, I'm going to stop sharing your screen. Okay, just going to make sure I've got a little video to share with you guys. So hopefully you guys will be able to hear my sound. If not, Kathleen, I'm going to look to you to tell me if it's working or not. All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. So as some of you may already know, CCS has signed on to be a Vega development partner with Innovative. We shared this news back in December, and I'm excited to walk you through what that means for all of us at this presentation today. So what is Vega? Vega is a platform that is comprised of multiple solutions, including a discovery or catalog interface, various patron engagement tools, an analytics tool, and a program and event software. The Vega subscription as a whole is multi-tiered. So when you subscribe to Vega, depending on your subscription, you'll have access to some or all of these different solutions. So CCS has signed on to be a development partner for Vega Discover, and Vega Discover is again that catalog interface. So as development partners for Vega Discover, we'll participate in advisory discussions, usability testing, we'll meet with Innovative regularly to share our feedback and suggestions for the software. And ultimately, if our needs are met, we will replace Power Pack with Vega Discover at the end of the development partner timeline. So here is a graphic from Innovative that's a little bit clunky, but I thought it would be a good visual for all of us to see today. You'll see here that Vega is, again, made up of multiple solutions, one of which is Vega Discover, a catalog or discovery interface. And then we do have additional tools, including Analyze, which is the analytics tool, a program and event software, and then some additional promotional and patron interaction tools as well. So as part of the partner program, again, we're signing on for the Discover piece. Though we're going to be giving feedback as these other products are developed, we'll be giving feedback on those as well in the event that maybe sometime in the future, we might want to consider those additional resources and tools as well. Okay, I have a little video that I'm going to share here, but let me make sure first I can share my sound with you. Okay, all right, I'm going to play a little promo from Innovative on what Vega Discover is, just so we have a little context as we're moving through the rest of the PowerPoint.
What if your library could become a part of your patron's life in the same way they experience other parts of the modern digital world? What if you could deliver an experience that brings the virtual library to life, that builds excitement and keeps them curious and interested from wherever they are? Welcome to Vega Discover, the first release in a new ultra-modern platform that helps your patrons interact with the library's resources like never before. So what makes Vega Discover different? Well, it's in the way Vega uses a whole new level of interconnectivity and intelligence, turning basic library functions into compelling new experiences. Experiences that make your patrons feel heard and understood. Take Vega Discover's roll-ups, for instance. These roll-ups efficiently combine formats and editions quickly in one single search, so a patron can see your entire offering of books, audiobooks, DVDs, even direct access to ebooks, all at a single glance. What's more, they can instantly use the Smart Placehold button to reserve a title, or 2, or 10. And with the click of a button, they can check out their desired items right there within their search. Natural explorers will love creating their own collections with Vega Discover's personalized bookshelf. It's modern, easy to find, and always present on screen. And the bookshelf gives users a handy place to save selected titles for later. Not to mention a great place to save the searches they already personally tailored to their needs. One of the best parts? Vega Discover features dynamic showcases that transform what once was traditional search and retrieve. Because these showcases are built on linked data, which means patrons can uncover all kinds of content from a specific author they enjoy, or reveal related topics they had never considered before. It works seamlessly together to create a leading-edge experience your patrons expect and deserve. And it's just the beginning for the ultra-modern Vega platform. Learn how you can unlock the potential of your library with Vega Discover and create a journey of delight that keeps patrons coming back for more. To find out more about the Vega Discover experience, visit www.
Okay, that was a little brief intro to what Vega looks like. And I'm gonna give some additional details on how you can learn more later in the presentation.
.iii.com.
Sorry about that. All right, so what is the current state of Vega Discover? Currently, again, Vega is a new product, so it is not done. It is currently being worked on by Innovative. And as development partners, again, we have the opportunity to help guide that development, which why it's such a great opportunity for us. So the current state of Vega Discover is that it's currently in general availability for Sierra standalone partners. Sierra is another ILS from Innovative. It's sort of their primary ILS aside from Polaris. So right now, Vega is in general release or general availability for those Sierra standalone libraries. Innovative is currently working now to develop Vega for their standalone Polaris partners. So it's not ready yet. There's no Polaris customers that are live on Vega, and they're still working to develop the product for Polaris. Simultaneously, Innovative is also working to develop Vega for both Polaris and Sierra consortia partners. So right now, the only library that is live on Vega is a standalone. They're working now to develop the functionality for consortia libraries with multiple members. So here is sort of a draft timeline, which I know everyone is very curious about. So we have broken it roughly into 3 phases, the project. The first phase is what we're currently in now and will run through roughly June of this year. This is our project kickoff and planning. The second phase will run through October, July through October. That will be early access and soft launch. And then the third phase will run from November through March of next year. That would be general availability of the software for consortia partners and our tentative go live pending governing board approval. So let's talk about these phases a little bit more deeply. So phase 1, project kickoff and planning, again, has already begun. It will run roughly through midsummer. During this phase, CCS will attend regular meetings with Innovative, both individual meetings and then group meetings with other development partners. During this time, we'll work with Innovative to establish our blockers or must-haves for go live. These are the things, the features for Vega that we would not go live without. So if they're not developed, we would not implement this product. So we're going to be working on that list and that draft over the next month or 2. During this time, we'll also be working on our user testing plan and our strategy for gathering feedback from all of you. We want to make sure that we're doing thorough user testing with Vega to determine whether or not this would be a suitable and better replacement for our patrons for PowerPack. So we wouldn't want to adopt a product unless we're doing, again, this thorough user testing. And again, we want to get feedback from all of you on what you think and your thoughts and feedback for this new product. During this time, we'll also begin working to create training materials and documentation so that as we're asking you to give feedback, we are also providing some training opportunities for you on how to use the new software. We anticipate that we will also start recruiting our beta libraries for the soft launch phase. Our beta libraries will, I'll talk about it on the next slide, but they will be adopting Vega first in the library so that they can help us with some testing and gathering some user feedback. During all of this, as all of this is happening, Innovative will continue to work on developing Vega for Polaris and for consortia partners. So midsummer, around July, we'll move into phase 2, which is early access or soft launch. Roughly around July, and again, these dates are flexible, they may adjust forward or backwards. Around that time, we'll receive our Vega instance. Our Vega instance will be syncing against our production environment, ideally. It will be live, it will be ready for staff to test in, it will be ready conceivably for some initial patron testing as well. During this time, Innovative will host an introductory webinar for all of you so that you can walk through with Innovative the new software, the new features, and how to use Vega. We'll continue to work with Innovative once we have our Vega instance to test, troubleshoot bugs, identify issues, and potential pitfalls and problems with the software. During this time, we'll also begin our patron testing and we'll begin formally gathering staff feedback as well. At some point in this early access phase, our beta libraries will begin using Vega at their OPEX within the library. So within the library, our beta testers will actually adopt Vega and replace their PowerPack instances throughout the library with the new Vega interface. We'll continue to attend meetings with Innovative, user testing sessions, feedback sessions, and so on with Innovative and with our fellow consortia partners. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions or pop them into the chat. I know it's a lot of information. Now, phase 3 will begin in the fall, roughly November, and will run through March of 2022. This will be general availability for Vega for consortia partners. So general availability means that the product isn't finished yet, but it is ready for a library to adopt. Because this is a new product, Innovative is constantly developing it. So they are rolling out releases every couple weeks and at least once a month. So general availability means that it's functional, it's ready to go, but that it's still being developed and they're still adding new features. During this time, CCS will continue to work with all of our members to test and evaluate the product. Again, Innovative will continue to roll out ongoing product updates regularly. And then at some point in this general availability phase, governing board will vote on whether we should adopt Vega as our primary discovery interface to replace PowerPack. Once that vote happens, we will set sort of a target go live, at which point we will switch over to the new interface. So all of this, of course, is pending development to make sure that Vega would have the features we would need to go live. It's pending our user testing to make sure that this software actually does work for our patrons and that they can achieve all of the things they need to in this new interface. And then again, governing board approval. So there are a few things, few resources you can check out to learn more about the new product. There is one library, the Ferguson library. They're actually live on Discover Now. They were the first library, they're a Sierra customer, to adopt Vega as their primary interface, replacing their existing catalog. So they just went live 2 weeks ago. I believe they are currently the only library who has fully shifted over to Vega, but we'll likely see some more libraries make that move over the next couple of weeks. I've also linked here, and I'll share the PowerPoint after the session, to innovative webinar on Vega that will give a few more details on the product, though it is constantly changing. So even since this webinar was released a month or two ago, they have made a lot of changes to Vega and added quite a few new features. So I'm hoping that they'll be hosting an updated webinar soon so that we can get a better sneak peek of what is currently the product looks like. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share and open it up to questions. It's got to be at least one question.
Deborah, is there a cost to the libraries for this?
There is a cost for the platform itself. We do not pay. That subscription does not start until we are actually live, until a library has adopted the product. It's already been approved by executive committee. But again, we wouldn't start paying costs for the new interface until we're actually live. So when we're in that last phase.
Do you know how much it is approximately?
No, I do not know how much it is. I know that information, I believe, was shared with directors. I'm happy to look at that and get some extra info for you. But it is an additional service, so there is an additional cost.
Deborah?
Yeah.
Is this something that a library, does everyone need to jump into this? Do we all need to participate, or could it be a library by library pickup?
Mm-hmm. It would be, I believe, a shift of everyone over to the new product. The rollout is, we haven't quite decided if governing board is to vote that yes, we want to adopt Vega as our primary discovery solution. The rollout might be one library at a time or all for one. We haven't quite decided what we would want that approach to be. And that's something that will factor into our discussions in the coming months. But the contract would be for all CCS libraries to adopt the product.
Violet from Palatine asks in the chat, is there a list of beta libraries? How many are there?
We don't have a list of beta libraries yet. We have yet to send that call out. However, I think based on our initial timeline or project timeline, we think we will send out that call for beta libraries in April or May. So we'll send out that call in CCS News. So start thinking about if that's something your library might be interested in participating in, and then keep your eyes peeled on CCS News and have your email ready to go to volunteer for us, Violet. And again, those beta libraries would be our early adopters. So you would again be our first ones to implement Vega within, and we think it would primarily be within the library as sort of a start, that you would start using that on your OPACs, staff would start using it at the desk. That way we can get that feedback, that regular feedback from you as you're watching patrons and you're helping patrons use the new interface. I think we get some really good feedback that way.
Deborah, I have a question that I think might be helpful for folks to know. So if a library does sign up as a beta library, are they running both at the same time, or are they just running PowerPack, or how will that work?
So when we get our Vega instance, we will still have PowerPack. So libraries will be simultaneously running both catalog interfaces. So our beta libraries, what I'm planning, and again, this is very tentative because we're just in the planning stages. We had our kickoff meeting 2 days ago. So you guys are getting sort of you're the first ones to hear some of this information, which is exciting. Go tell everybody. So the beta libraries, what we're anticipating, again, is that they would leave PowerPack as their discovery solution, linked on their website for patrons to access at home, but then in the building is where you would be switching over to Vega. So the two will both be synced to Polaris. So if a patron places a hold in the Vega Discover interface that will sync up with their Polaris account. And then if they were to log into Power Pack later, they would be able to see that hold. I see another question in the chat. Is the programming module in Vega an option, or is it planned to be included with what CCS will eventually adopt? At this time, our the programming module is not ready yet. So this is one of the ones I haven't seen any sneak peeks of at this time. They're working on Discover, and then they've started working on the patron engagement module, which would include things like a chat bot and like newsletter functionality, and those types of engagement tools. I haven't seen anything for the programming module yet, so that's coming farther down the road. At this time, our contract would include Discover only, though I think we're really interested in seeing what these other modules look like and what features they have, and keeping our options open for the future. That would be something our libraries would be interested in looking at. There's another question saying, will the beta libraries get a discount since they are volunteering to help? No, we as a consortium may be getting a discount because we are as a consortia beta libraries, but the contract is for CCS as a whole, and the cost would then be broken out by library per whatever executive committee has decided. I don't quite have information on the cost, but no, there is no discount to volunteer as a beta library. So we do appreciate it. You will get our love and appreciation. There's another question. Was the Vega beta partnership prompted by a request from governing board, and how did the process get rolling? That's a really good question. The Vega partnership was approved by executive committee in December after, I believe we were actually approached by Innovative to participate in the program. So governance reviewed that request and determined that they would like us to pursue this partnership and move forward. So again, as part of the beta program, we're not tied to adopting the product. There's an opt-out clause. So if we determine that this will not fill our needs for, again, a catalog interface, we can opt out. And that's part of the discussion governing board will have as we get into that third phase. Yeah, we are, there are 5 consortia partners right now. We are one of 2 Polaris consortia. The other is actually our neighbors, the Pinnacle Library Consortia. So I'm really excited because as one of 2 Polaris consortia partners, we have a very strong say. What we say matters because we're only one of 2. So I think that we have a really wonderful opportunity to help guide the development of the product. And as one of only 5 consortia partners, I also think, again, we have a big voice right now. So that's, I think, a really great bonus for all of us. Any other questions? Okay, well, I know we'll have a lot more information to share with all of you over the next few months, but we wanted to start talking about this as soon as we could with all of our members because we're really excited. We want all of you to get excited. So look for more details at future meetings, and then again through CCS News on how you can participate and share your feedback with us. So if you do have any questions after the meeting wraps up, feel free to email me directly. And again, stay tuned for more info on it. So I will turn it over now to Kathleen.
Okay, hi. All right, hello again. So what I'll be talking about next also has to do with some new and exciting things coming to CCS, but they're things that serve you that you don't have to beta or be a part of. You get to just kind of relax and watch it happen without doing any work, which is always very exciting. So as we've sort of talked about at past PAS meetings, we are in the process of redesigning our website. So we've selected a vendor named Planetaria who will be doing that for us. And one of the things that vendor has done is given us a survey to share with our members. And what the survey is meant to do is allow us to understand how you use our CCS websites. As I'm sure you're aware, a lot of our resources are spread across multiple websites. So you've got the learning portal, you've got ccslib.org, and a couple other training instances. So when we shared this survey out in our newsletter last Friday, we only got 6 responses thus far. And I know that there are more than 6 library staff members using our websites. So I've shared that survey in the chat here. So if while I'm talking about notices or while you have time at the end of this meeting, you want to take a moment, shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes to fill out that survey. That gives us a lot of information about how you use our websites. And we can use that information when we go to organize our new website. So things are arranged in a way that makes sense. As far as other website updates, just note that by mid-July this year, you should see a new one. But again, we can only design a website that works for you if you take our survey. So again, that's in the chat, and we appreciate if you take a moment to fill that out. Okay, so beyond our website redesign, the next thing I want to talk about has to do with our email notices redesign project. So let me go ahead and queue up my PowerPoint for that. All right, and can I get a nod or a thumbs up if you can see that? Okay, thank you, Deborah, appreciate it. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about here has to do with our CCS notices. So as I'm sure we're all very aware of throughout COVID, notices have become one of the primary ways that we communicate with our patrons. As our libraries have opened and closed, a lot of times notices might be the only communication that our libraries are seeing from us. And so we've really decided to prioritize those notices and make them as usable as possible. So what we've done is we've done a little bit of research to determine which notices are reaching the largest amounts of patrons. So you can see from this chart here, the amount of email notices that we send out far outweigh the phone, text message, and mailing notices that are sent out. So we've decided to focus on those email notices because they have the largest impact to the largest amount of patrons. Okay, and then when we look at the most commonly issued notice types, these are the ones that we'll be focusing on testing with our users. So unsurprisingly, the almost overdue and auto renew notices go out the most, followed by our holds notices, followed by overdue. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about what the UX advisory group has done with notices already and what we'll be doing in the future and how you can expect your notices to possibly change a little bit this summer, and then how you can get involved if this project speaks to you or it's something you're interested in being a part of. Okay, so the current situation with the UX advisory group is we've done what I'll call a comparative analysis of some of the notice types that we work with. So Nielsen Norman outlines 7 different types of successful criteria for email notifications. So what we've done is we've taken a look at the almost overdue notice and at the holds notice and talked about how well those meet these different criteria in 2 half-hour sessions. What we ultimately wound up with when doing that is a chart that looks a little bit like this. So we look at the purpose. So can you determine the purpose of this email by looking at things like the subject header and its body? How much do you feel you can trust the email that you're looking at? Does it look like spam? The completeness, so whether the email has everything you need in order to understand that you're picking up a hold or that your materials have been renewed. Timing, it's a little harder to look at timing because we're looking at a notice from a week ago or a month ago. Value, so rating the helpfulness of the information contained in the email. We've talked about ease of use. So that has to do with how easy is that email to read. For example, is the font very small? Are the tables not usable? Things like that. Content, things like word choice. So does the notice use really heavy library jargon? Are we using words like interlibrary loan or hold? Things that may or may not make sense to our patrons. And then design. So the layout and format of the email. Are we serving our users with the way that this is laid out? So what we did is we looked at notices from the Chicago Public Library, Swan Library, and CCS and sort of compared those side by side. And for each of these different criteria, we gave each a score from 1 to 5. So you can sort of see how the CCS notice scores next to other large library consortia in our area. So what we ultimately did is we took a look at the notice that we had assessed, and we outlined what was difficult to read about it and what was easy to understand. So sort of a pros and cons when we compare ourselves to our neighbors. So things like the subject header not always being very clear, things like book new, does that mean anything to our patrons? Information like the word automatically, does that mean anything to our patrons? Looking at whether or not these tables are mobile friendly, hint, they're not. So different things like that, we would take a look at those notices. But what we were missing as we went through was the ability to interact directly with our patrons. So we've shifted the test plan a little bit. So we hope to actually work directly with our patrons to get feedback, in addition to assessing those notices on a piece-by-piece basis. So we learned a little bit in doing our comparative analysis, but what we hope to do next is work directly with our patrons. So what the UX group will be doing is editing and prototyping notices in a couple of different ways. So I had attended a conference called Design for Digital. It's a UX library conference, and there was an academic library there that walked through a test plan called Emails Are UX Too, How to Make Better Overdue Notices and Other Communications. And it was great because it was literally like a step-by-step process of how we could do this at CCS. So we adopted their plan, and I'll walk you through how we'll be using it. But essentially, they walked through how they transformed their notices from these jargon-ridden communications to things that were actually usable to their patrons. Okay, so here's what we'll actually be doing. So the goals for our test plan, so what we want to get out of this at the end, is to determine what information used in email notices are helpful to patrons. We include a lot of info in there, and a lot of it is set to default. We haven't necessarily thought through what's useful and not useful for our patrons. We want to identify opportunities to improve our email notices. We'll also discover whether current email notices are helpful to patrons. We send them a lot of information, but we don't get a lot of feedback on whether that information is helpful to our patrons in interacting with the library. Once we've gotten feedback from our patrons, we'll incorporate that feedback into edits and prototyping of email notices within the UX advisory group, which is just a fancy way of saying we will rewrite the notices that we have currently based on the feedback we get from patrons. Then we'll share those prototypes out with our patrons in order to determine whether or not they have actually been improved. And then we'll implement the rewrites of those notices as final notices over the summer. Okay, so the process for this. So we start by creating and linking a survey into each notice type. So those 10 types of notices I shared at the beginning, we'll embed a survey into each one of those. So when a patron reviews their email notice, they're invited to take part in a survey, and that will take place over 1 month. So each notice type will receive what I'm calling a satisfaction rating. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how helpful was this notice for you? And will also involve an open-ended question where patrons can respond about what could be improved about the notice, what could be better about it. The UX advisory group will pull all of that data together and review it and perform a group edit on our email notices using Google Docs. So using the patron feedback and lessons learned, we'll create prototypes of each new notice type. We'll share those prototypes with patrons to get additional feedback over Zoom. Then that feedback will be incorporated into final email notices, which we'll implement this summer. So as far as participants, here's what we're sort of looking for. 3 to 5 CCS libraries that are willing to link the survey from their notices. We want to get feedback from at least 50 to 100 patrons on the email notice survey. And then ultimately, we'll speak with 5 to 10 patrons to review the prototypes that the UX advisory group comes up with. Okay, so here's an example of how we would expect that survey to work. So the patron has received their notice letting them know requested items are available. They can click a link within the email notice, and that brings up an email feedback form. So within this, they can rate the helpfulness of the email, so whether it was not helpful at all or extremely helpful. This is ultimately what gives us that rating of how helpful the email notice is. Then they have the opportunity to write how the library might be able to improve this notice. They could say something like, don't do anything at all. Or they could say this email was hard to understand. I had trouble reading it because the text was so small. But the idea is we give them the opportunity to speak up and tell us about what works and what doesn't. Once they've finished putting the feedback into that space, they can also determine whether or not they want to share more information with the library down the road. If they say no, the form exits. If they say yes, they have the opportunity to enter their name and their email address. When they've done that, they're a candidate to follow up with on the prototypes because they've told us that they're interested in providing more feedback. Then they go ahead and hit submit. The whole thing's over. But the idea is in doing this, we're getting feedback from patrons who've actually interacted with a notice. And then this is also serving as a screener to recruit patrons to give feedback on prototypes down the road. So the libraries who've opted into including the survey in their notice, this is what they can expect it to look like. Okay. So as far as how will we actually rewrite these notices? So with each of the notices, we'll go ahead and pull them into a Google Doc. Then the user experience advisory group will co-edit these in Google Docs. So this is sort of a mock-up here. We're looking at a hold notice here, letting the patron know that requested items are ready for pickup. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and look at these notices as a group. We'll take what we've learned from the patron feedback and we'll create prototypes. So with this, we make suggestions on how that notice might be changed. Then all of those suggestions are incorporated into a prototype. I call it a prototype because it's not the final version. We'll get feedback on this prototype from patrons who've opted into sharing, who've opted into wanting to share more information on these prototypes who'd filled out this.
Kathleen, we lost your audio.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Kathleen. Ooh.
This is really bad. How about now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Ooh, Kathleen, we can hear you.
You can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, thank goodness. All right. It should be an exciting meeting. Okay, so the prototypes are worked on with the UX group. From there, this is kind of the longer timeline, so you get an idea of how this whole project will function. So right now we have created and tested the survey, so we know that we can embed it successfully in notices. We're in this phase now from March 14th through the 21st, where we'll be recruiting CCS libraries that want to participate and be a part of the project. Beginning March 22nd, we'll embed the survey and begin collecting feedback. We have left a month time to collect feedback from patrons. I suspect we'll get a lot more feedback very quickly. The library who I'm borrowing this test plan from, they only send out 900 notices a day. So it's a smaller library. One of our libraries easily sends out 1,000 notices a day. So I have no worries that we won't get enough feedback from our patrons. If we wind up getting all the feedback we need within 1 week, we have several hundred patrons reply, no problem. If we need a full month, we have that time. No worries, nice and easy. So we'll take that month to collect feedback from our patrons. Then beginning April 26th through the 30th, the UX group will summarize all of the free text feedback that we received. So we'll start grouping it thematically so we can, if we see that 10 people have said this text is really tiny, it's hard to read, we can go ahead and say, all right, that's a theme a lot of people have shared with us. If we hear something like, I don't need to know the format of the material I've checked out, we can go ahead and take that feedback into account. But the idea is we group all of that open-ended feedback into themes, and then those are used in developing the prototypes. So I'll spend April 26th through the 30th summarizing all of that feedback, and then I'll present it to the UX advisory group. That meeting will also be recorded. So if you're interested in what our patrons have said, you can watch that recording. It'll also be summarized into a more formal report if you'd rather read that. But the idea is we take all the open-ended feedback and pull it there. And then each notice will also be given that rating of 1 through 5, so we can see how well they perform in general. Okay, then from May 3rd through the 14th, the UX advisory group will review the existing notice text in the Google Docs, like I mentioned a moment ago, and we'll go ahead and make recommendations for what can be improved. We'll also then at that point meet with patrons over Zoom to get their feedback on what works and what doesn't with those redesigned notices. And that will happen from May 17th through the 21st. Then from May 24th through the 28th, CCS will determine which edits can feasibly be implemented. So for example, if we hear from patrons, I would love if there was a giant color photo in this notice of each book that I've got checked out. I don't know that we can do that. However, if we hear something like, I wish this table was oriented vertically instead of horizontally, that's probably something we can change. So at that point, we take all of the feedback that we've received and we sort of talk about what's technically feasible and what isn't. Then in June, we'll implement the edits that have been reviewed and proposed. So ideally, end of June, we've got some nice new beautiful notices. Okay, so if this sounds exciting or you want to get involved, how can you do that? So one, determine if your library would like to volunteer. So maybe have some conversations with your director, with the CERC, the folks who have to respond to the folks calling in about those notices that come in. See if this is something your library is interested in doing. If you are interested in participating, you can use the link on the slide here. You can shoot me an email, but ultimately there's a form on learning.ccslib.org/participate. You can fill that out and your library will be part of the group that's being included in the testing. There's also an FAQ on this page as well. So if you have questions about the notice testing and what that will look like for your library, a lot of those will be answered there. Libraries that are participating right now include Glenview, Morton Grove, Highland Park, Palatine, and Prospect Heights. So if you want to add your name to that list, we'd be happy to have you. If not, you can also just benefit greatly this summer from having beautifully redesigned notices. So are there any questions on the notice testing? Okay, I'll take that quiet as no. That is quite all right. So let me stop my share here, pull our agenda back up. Okay, so next, excuse me, our member services librarian, Rachel, she's going to talk to us about searching for accelerated reader titles and give us a little bit of a LEAP demo. So Rachel, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
I need you to allow me to share my screen.
You're a co-host now, so you should be able to do that. Let me know if you can't.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I have added 2 new SQL queries to the list of saved queries, and you can access them in LEAP to search for reading programs in the 526 field. Unfortunately, the 526 field is not properly indexed, so it does require the use of a SQL query to search for the different subfields. So when using it, it's fairly easy to use, but it does require a bit of editing to change the subfield and the value that you're searching for. So in order to do that, it's important to get to know the different subfields. The 526 is called the Study Program Information Note. So the subfield A is the name of the study program. However, one thing that's a bit problematic when searching for the subfield A is that the programs have not been standardized yet as a way that the value is entered into the system. So for example, accelerated reader might look like accelerated reader AR in one record, but in another record, it might just be A/R. So if you just search for accelerated reader, you might not actually come up with it. One thing that we may want to do is to talk to Scrap about coming up with a standard format for the subfield A so that it is corrected in each of the records and has one way to search for it. So subfield B is the interest level. Not all programs have an interest level, so I've got 3 examples on the screen. You can see that the accelerated reader and reading counts example have an interest level, but the 3rd example is Fontes and Pinnell, and that does not have an interest level in that record. Subfield C is the reading level. So that looks differently depending on the program. So in the first 2 examples, you can see the reading level is a digit, but in the 3rd example, it's a letter. Subfield D is a title point value. Again, that's different for each of the reading levels, and you can see that in the Fontes and Pinnell example that there is no subfield D. And the next field is the subfield Z, which is a public note. So this frequently has the word quiz in it with a colon and then a number. So this is an example of what a SQL query looks like. SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and this is a database querying language that will query the databases in the Polaris database. So you don't have to know anything about SQL to use it. All you need to do is alter the values that you're searching for. And these are where I've highlighted the text in yellow on the screen. So we have publication year. You can change this to any year, or if you don't want to search for a specific publication year, you can delete this whole row beginning with the word where, and you will not affect the query at all. It will be totally fine. You can also use a percent symbol like a wildcard. You might be used to using a star as a wildcard, but here in SQL queries, we use the percent. So if you wanted to search for anything published after the year 2000, you could just add the percent symbol after 2 and search for 2%, and it will search for anything after the year 2000. If you wanted to search for, say, the year 2020 and 2021, or anything after 2020, you can search for 202%, and it will search for anything after the year 2020. So BT period tag number, that's the tag number 526. I've highlighted it, but you won't need to change it. You can just leave it as 526. The subfield, you will need to change the subfield within the single quotes to the subfield that you would like to query. And then this last row, data like, is for the value of the field. So in this example, this is the program name, and I've typed in the program name Accelerated Reader AR. But again, if you are searching for a specific program, it could look like any variation on this. Accelerated Reader, Accelerated Readers, Reading, AR, A/R. So there's a lot of variations that you may need to search for to find all accelerated readers. So here's an example that I've altered the query to search for the interest level published at any time. So I have deleted that row for the publication year. The interest level is subfield B, so I've changed the A to a B. And I'm searching for the data MG for the middle grade interest level. So for accelerated readers, there's MG and MG plus. So if I wanted to find MG plus, I could change this to MG plus. If I wanted to find both MG and MG plus, I can change this to MG%. And then that would search for anything that's MG and MG plus. So this next example is the query for reading level of 4.0 to 4.9 published in 2020. So I've added back in that row for where publication year equals 2020. Here I've changed the subfield to subfield C for the reading level. And in order to find that whole range of 4.0 to 4.9, I've changed the value to 4%. So this will look for anything that begins with the number 4 so that it will search for the whole range. So there is one more reader, one more SQL query that has been added. That's a separate one to just search for the branch as a filter. So the beginning looks pretty much the same. You will still want to change your subfield. You can change the year or delete that and change the value, but it has an extra row in the query already. And this is for the assigned branch ID. You will need to change the number within the parentheses to your Polaris branch code. If you have multiple branches for your library, you can add more than one number and separate them by a comma. So I'm going to switch to Polaris now, or to Leap, and demonstrate how to edit this. So once I've opened up the Find tool, you'll want to choose Bibliographic Record. The second drop-down menu is the search mode. Here you can select SQL Search. If you do not see that SQL Search is in this drop-down menu, you can let us know that your permissions need to be updated by writing to the help desk. And this third drop-down menu has a list of all of our saved SQL queries. So if you go down to the bottom of the list, you'll see Study Program and Study Program by Branch. So Study Program does not have that row at the end to search for the branch, and it will search for all records in the database. If you'd like to search for just the ones that your library owns, you can select Study Program by Branch. So I will select that. In order to edit this query, you will need to press this caret symbol, and it opens up the text box. And here you can edit the subfield, update the publication year. If you want, you can just delete this so that you don't filter by publication year. So I'm going to delete that. And then alter the value. So I'll use the example of the interest level for MG and MG plus and make that MG%. So it will find both. And if I wanted to just search for the items owned by Palatine, I would change that to 72, 73, 74. And then in order for this to run properly, you need to press that caret again to close the text box. Then you can press the search symbol, and it will search for all of the records that have an interest level of MG and MG plus in Palatine. So if you take a look at this MARC record and go down to the 526 field, you can see the example that it's found a record with the interest level of MG. But if you wanted to you can see that this one also has a reading count level. It has an interest level of 3 to 5. So if you decided you wanted to expand your search to something different, you can alter that search. So it's an interest level of 3 to 5. So I'll leave that as branch ID 12, see if there's any for branch ID 12. And here we have everything that has the interest level of 3 to 5 for branch ID 12. So here you can see some inconsistencies in the reading level. This is a good example here of how these are not standardized yet. So we have accelerated reader AR in this field, just accelerated reader in this field. Here we have reading counts RC, reading counts with an exclamation mark. And you can see that with the first example, accelerated readers reading count or interest level of 3 to 5 matched the MG interest level of accelerator to reader, but here it's an LG interest level and 3 to 5 for the reading count interest level. So there are a lot of different variations that you will see in these 526 fields as you search for it. And I believe that in the previous PAS meeting, you talked about different charts that you could look at. So that's possibly something that you could reference while you're deciding what you want to search for. And I have also created a document. You can find it on the learning portal. This is the under Polaris Procedures, the Public Services link. And on this page, you can find it by clicking on Searching. And it's this last one called SQL Queries for the Study Program field. So that will give you some additional examples of how you can alter the search and some notes on the areas where the fields may differ. So you can see I've added some examples for publication year here and some of other examples for reading level. Do you have any questions? If you have any other requests too for different examples, I could demonstrate a couple of other examples.
We just have a lot of comments coming in saying, thank you, Rachel, that's super helpful. And this is very cool and very useful. I see it from all of our children's librarians. So that's very nice to see. And have a couple comments using this clip at my next staff meeting. I can also clip this meeting so that it's two separate. So you can have just the clip of the searching so you don't have to search through the right place. I see the yes exclamation point. Okay, great.
So I think one thing that is problematic, as I said, is all of the different variations in that subfield A field that need to be cleaned up. And I can bring it up to scrap to see if we'd want to make that standardized field. It hasn't been done yet and would need to be part of our local practices that we need to add a page to the catalog wiki. It could take time to create that practice, and we may need some help from some of the children's librarians to make sure that field does look the way they'd want it to look, and to craft a list of what we'd want to standardize it as. Is that something that anyone would be interested in recommending to CAM and Scrap, or interested in helping us with? I see a message from Anne that she is interested in helping. I'll write that down.
We can also put a reminder in the newsletter too, asking for help with that. Melissa Morgan from Winnetka says that she can think of at least one person at her library that would be happy to help too.
Great.
And then as Rachel mentioned, if you don't have access or permission to run a SQL query in Leap, just go ahead and open a help ticket. You can just email help@ccslib.org and we can make sure that you get set up with that correct permission. And if you have a question on how to modify the query, Rachel gave some great examples, but I know when you're actually in there in the find tool trying to make the change, sometimes it can get a little confusing if you're not familiar with SQL. So if you need help modifying the query, just open a ticket as well. We're happy to work with you for those changes. Thanks, Kathleen. Kathleen popped the help desk email into the chat.
Okay, so I think that was our last topic on the agenda. We can go ahead and open it up to discussion. I'm also popping that SurveyMonkey link into our chat as well. So if you want to let us know how you use our website and what could be better about it, you can also take the time to fill out that as well. Because we can only make it better if you help us understand how you want to navigate that site. It's kind of like voting. Like if you don't vote in an election and then things don't go the way you want, right? Like you have to be a part of the process. So please consider using that survey.
And we all know you all have opinions on our website, so please share them with us.
Yes, like please unload those. We would be really happy to hear about them so we can make that better. So that said, we can go ahead and open it up to open discussion. If there was anything else anyone wanted to talk about or chat about, now is the time to do that. Okay, we're usually by far the chattiest group in CCS, but that is okay that we're not. It's no problem. We'll go ahead and if you want to exit, that's fine. I will go ahead and post. I'll go ahead and post this to the CCS YouTube page, and then I will also split out Rachel's discussion on using the Accelerated Reader Study Program SQL query. So if you want to use that at a reference or children's department meeting, you can go ahead and just watch that. Again, if you have any questions, help@ccslive.org is a great place to put those requests for permissions or get help with using that query. Our survey is there for the website. I will start repeating that like the broken record that I am. And then I think we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Becky, I'll go ahead and hand that off to you.
Okay, so we just need a motion to adjourn then. Everybody is really quiet today.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thanks, Liz.
No problem.
John from Wilmette, I second.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.